Boom boom ba boom bum ba boom bum ba boom bum bum ba ba dum bum bum ba.
I'm a Paltiel.
Hello.
All right, so we finally are here. I feel like Channukah, your culture.
Okay, recording. Oops, why is the camera not reading? You want that one?
So we concluded.
What a nice welcome.
You're always welcome. Comes in the middle. Up to we reached which is the important focus of this whole minor, that oir, even as he says at the end, the mislabish and the kelim de atzilus, even when it comes to be his slapshus. In other words, we didn't really discuss his slapshus sufficiently. I just want to quickly. The oir is mislabish in a kelim. Oir in soif cannot fit in a kelim. It cannot fit into any definitive description. In Atzilus, the oil is mislabish in a keli. So there is chesed, the gvura tiferes. Even if we say that the oiros are pshutim, as the Rebbe says, there are two views. The oiros are pshutim. The keli is what gives it its color, its form. Or we say that the oil itself has its color. But even if we see that the oiros are pshutim in themselves, as a result of his slapshus in the keli, the oil assumes the color of the keli. So the oil becomes an oil that's his slapshus in the keli. In other words, it is not that the keli and the oil are just put together and they do not really relate to one another, except that the oil is in the keli, and it gives the keli its general chayas, but not a specific chayas. That is not the case. The oil gives the keli its specific chayas. If this is kli hachesed, the oil gives it the koyach hachesed. Even though the oil is poshut, but as a result of his slapshus, the element of chesed is elicited from the oil, identified in the oil, and the oil gives the keli the chayas of chesed. So therefore the oil becomes oil ha-chesed, even though it becomes such as a result of the keli. In itself it's poshut. Nevertheless, there is an element of chesed in the oil, and that's where it gives chayas of chesed. So then it becomes oil ha-chesed. At this stage, is it still oil atzma? Does it still have a koyach atzma? So we say yes. Even at this stage, it has koyach atzma. Oil at any stage has oil atzma. Is oil atzma. How do we understand this? If it becomes oir hachesed, so how is it oir atzmi representing atzmis? So for this, we are coming back and re-emphasizing that the whole principle of presence of Oir is, in fact, the presence of Atzmos. Oir comes bechinas kiruv. Oir does not come as a result, I have something and I give you. Oir is the presentation of himself. So even though that this himself can go through various stages and it becomes all the way Oir HaChesed, it is still himself that he is presenting. That's the whole principle of Oir. It never becomes a Metzias.
The only way to bring out the Oir HaChesed would be through the Keli?
So that is the two opinions in the Kabbalah. Whether the Oiris are shooting or the Oiris are Mitziyorim. The Oiris, one they mislabish, the Oiris are mislabish in Kriya.
No, I'm asking before it's brought out that it's Oir HaChesed. It had the Alulias to become, because it was Poshet, so you said Poshet is like the canvas, you gave the muscle. Is the only way to bring that out, that would be through Kalim?
So I'm saying, there is an opinion that holds that the oil, even before it's mislabish, the oil that's mislabish in the Keli already has a tzir HaChesed, as a result of the tzimtzumim and all the Seder Ishtalshalos. There are two opinions about this. So I'm saying that even if we say that the oil is pshutim, the way the Rebbe presents it, usually you see that the oil is pshutim, and it's the keli that gives it its seed. Nevertheless, there is an element of chesed in the oil as a result of the keli. So it's no longer an oil poshut, even though it's the keli that causes it. I want to bring this down so that we relate to this concept. We spoke about it throughout this whole discussion here. The nefesh gives chayes to the goof, makes the goof alive, and then the goof has many limbs, many parts. Hands and feet and eyes and so forth. And each one of these parts has its function. Do these functions represent nefesh, or do they represent the function at the function level? Do they represent nefesh, or do they represent goof? But the goof, because the goof is alive, so you train the goof to do various things. This is an important distinction. That the fact that the person has a various capabilities, various koiches, we have to understand this is nefesh koiches. This is not goof koiches. A person does not become a speaker because he's trained to speak. A person doesn't become a walker because he's trained to walk. A person doesn't become a rider because he's trained to ride. The slapshus or the nefesh in the goof is per oiver, per keach. And the koyach hatziur or the koyach hatnua, in part of the koyach hatnua in the hand is slabish koyach hatnua. And in the skull is not mislabish koyach hatnua. In the koyach hatnua there are many facets, many parts, and the koyach to write and the koyach to hatziur, all that these are individually sub koyches, which all trace back to the nefesh. So the real chayas that the nefesh gives to the goof is not the overall chayas, the chayas kloli. There is the union of chayas kloli, but the real chayas, what mislabish in the goof, is the chayas that is specific to that particular aver. And this is when the oil ever comes to life. There is a phenomenal difference. You will understand this. We learned this way back when. That when when your hand is at rest and it's not doing anything, there is a phenomenal difference between this hand. If the hand has the koyach hatnua, or the hand is just alive and Nechmon Islam it lost its koyach hatnua. It's not able to move, but it's alive. It's not falling apart. It has the highest quality. You can't tell the difference when it's at rest. You can't tell the difference. Is only superficial. It's a completely different thing. The highest in the hand is not that it's alive and it doesn't, Rahman Islam, fall apart. The koyach hatnua is what's actually reverberating and is active in the hand all the time, whether you are using it or you're not using it. And this is the chayes hanefesh atzumim. This is reflected in a well-known statement. Machshava mushetet stomach. I'm sure you heard this expression. That thought is constantly following. There's a constant thinking process in the person. But he's not thinking about anything. This is like the hand that's not doing anything. But the highest nefesh in the groove is constant. And is constantly active.
What means he doesn't think anything? He does.
He's not consciously thinking anything. He's not focusing on anything. I'm saying he does. It's true. Machshava Mishet Stomach is at a deeper level than the fact that there's a koyach hatnua. But the koyach hatnua is also active all the time. And it keeps the hand.
He's not using
active.
it. He's
Even
not
though
using
he's not using it. Okay, so this goes back to understand the Inyan that the oil is mislab, oil hachesed. There's an oil hachesed. Even the oil in essence is oil poshut. There is a chesed. Once it's mislabish in the keli, it becomes oil hachesed. Once it's oil hachesed, so where is it? Where is its trace? Where is it? How do you compare it to the oil poshut? Coming from atzmos, it's oil poshut. You say even then, it is oil. It is oil atzmi. Because the whole principle of oil, no matter at what level, the whole principle of oil is that this is the key of oil. Oil is not representing a koyach or an inyan. Oil is representing the etz. That's what oil is.
It's no longer pashut, it's no longer simple, but it's always going to be atzmi. Always central.
That's right. Always etzim, always the fundamental reality, fundamental truth.
From what he's saying, he's asking, but the fundamental truth by Etzim is not movable, it's not a tzir. So, it's the chassid.
The tziyur is, through say the Rishta, this is what was elicited from it. But the oil element is an atzmi. The oil element of it is an atzmi.
It's called oira chesed.
Oira chesed, as distinct to kliya chesed.
Oira chesed of the atzmi.
No, oira chesed is mislabish in the key.
Yeah,
in atzmos there is no oira chesed.
But here we say that it is Orach Chesed now.
Yeah, so how does it relate back to the answer?
Can you say that one more time? That how the or taints illicit? I just got a little bit distracted.
So was I.
Alright.
I'm holding up this cup.
Rabbi Paltiel?
Yes, sir.
So Yehuda asked the question, and we discussed this before, and I'm not sure I understood the answer. I think I remember Yehuda asked the question. This is true. We're talking about Atzilus, and even beyond Atzilus. In other words,
Let's stay in Atzilus right now, and then we'll see if right.
Just stay in Atzilus. Okay.
Let's stay in Atzilus. Well, who needs to go down further? We have plenty of difficulty understanding at that level. Okay, let's get back. I want to point out something as clearly as we can. I'm holding this cup. The cup in my hand are two separate entities completely. The fact that I'm holding the cup does not represent my koyach atnu. I can hold the cup. I can hold the watch. I can hold nothing. Not representing my koyach. Not representing me. So when I'm holding up the cup, if there is intent, if I'm holding the cup just because I don't want it to drop on the floor, it's a different. But it's intent. I'm on showing the cup. Then there are two things that you notice. You notice the cup, and you notice the fact that I'm holding it. This Indian that I'm holding it is representing something that I want that you should see the cup. So even though all I'm showing is the cup, but there is the element that I want you to see it. I want. This becomes my port. This becomes my presence. Two separate inyonim, completely two different levels. And the impression on the recipient is profound. Whether he sees a cup or he sees a cup that's being shown to him. Completely different phenomena. And this is reflected. This is when we say we see truth inside. You could see the object because you see it, because it deflects the light. So you only see the object. And then you could see it because it's being shown to you. A completely different experience, totally. It acquires a different level of reality. This is when the world comes to life. This is when the world becomes real. Yes, I only see the oil, I see this, but how come I see it? Because the Rebbe is showing it to me. It's a completely different thing. That's the experience of sight.
Is this related to the concept in the Rambam that the appropriate derech is derech to the middle way? Because if you only see the chesed, it's restricted to chesed. If you see the Eivishter or the Kohen holding the cups, as we said in the mashal, so Memela, a person's perception is more broad. It's not just limited to this one meter. It's more scales because he sees the Kohen behind it, which is not just limited to one specific chesed, one specific meter. So is this related concept or not necessarily?
It's very indirectly related. I could see where you're coming from because you're so involved in it, but it's not. It's very indirectly related. It is true. However, since you mentioned it, I just want to clarify that Rambam says the person has to go b'derech hamitzua. You should have hamitzua, the middle way. person has to train himself to go by the mitzvah, not to go into any extreme. Except in certain cases, the Rambam says an exception. In Gaiva and so forth, but Derech Klal should do Derech HaMitzvah. And this is the good Derech HaYosher, but the Rambam also calls it Derech Hashem.
Why?
Derech Hashem.
He calls it Derech Hashem.
Derech Hashem. This is the Derech Hashem. This is the important point. In other words, it's not that the Rambam is giving you advice from a practical worldly perspective. Look, if you're not going to go into extremes, you'll be calm. You won't be torn apart. That is not the Rambam. I'm saying, if you want to go b'derech Hashem, if you want that in your path of life, there should be the Oyer Eliki, that's the way to do it. Because Elokus encompasses everything.
Yes, I was referring. Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah, that's what I was referring to. That you're focusing.
I know.
Well, yeah.
Very indirect.
Because it encompasses everything. Therefore, you go with Derech HaMitzvah.
That's what he does Derech HaMitzvah. Derech HaMitzvah is between. It doesn't negate one way or another way. It's a combination of all. All right, no, that's it. All right, so this is what we wanted. This is what we finally learned over there. That even K'meshim Yislab is ba'atzil is b'chim she'eratzim. Yes.
Yeah, so going back to the cup example, I'm holding it, or I want you to see the cup. So how does this example relate to? So in other words, in the I want you to see it, I'm showing it to you. This is the Oyer Atzmi in the Oyer that's Melubash and Keli. Is that what you're saying?
Right.
Because there you see who's behind the fact that you see the cup. That's the Atzmi.
I don't know. Yes, but that is draining it of its chayas. Then,
why would put the chayas back into it? So how should it be said?
Then you see the cup because it's being shown to you.
So the shown is the Indian of Kiruv.
Shown is Indian of Kiruv.
Even though that's not your intention. Your intention is actually to show the cup.
No, I want to show the cup.
Is the head, you show the eye?
Not I, the combination, there is a presence. I'm presenting myself, I'm serving you dinner. I want you to have dinner or I want to serve it to you. Both, I want you to have dinner but I want to serve it to you. This is our classic motion.
The host.
The host. This is oil. It's an intangible thing but it's a tremendous, profound significance. This is oil. Oil is that which exists only because there's an etz. Okay, so now we're going into the second section on this page. Even though it is true, as we have pointed out, the klal is hoir hu b'bchinas oir atzmi. That oil overall is in the category, carries on the quality of oil atzmi. That is what oil is. Even at the point where you identify in oil certain specific qualities like chesed and gvura, the oil element of it is oil atzmi. Again, to elaborate further on this and focus on this particular statement, as we point out all the time, 1 and 1 is 1 and 1. But then we say no, it's 2. 2 is the oil element in this whole Metzius. Besides the Metzias, it's one on one. Two once. Two is due to the truth that's behind it. This is an oil element. This is not a tangible thing. And if somebody is not sensitive to the oil, you can't convince him of it. You can convince him that there is two once, but you can't convince him that there is two. So close ho er beginnen ze ratzen. We come still yesh boy chilukim madregos. But nevertheless, even then there is in this oil there is chilukim madregos. Say inyan gimel piyom kodesh, which is the principle of the 3 times kodesh Malachim say. Pirush kodesh. For the meaning of the word kodesh is Shu Kodesh Umuvdo. That he is Kodesh. Kodesh means Muvdo is separated. In other words, it's an entity that remains Muvdo, remains itself, never becomes part of something else. And therefore, it would appear to be wondrous what Mahu Yin Gimel Pom Kodesh. What is a 3 times Kodesh? If it's Kodesh, it's Kodesh. Ahu Yin Hu. However, the principle is the Klal is Ha'oir, that the Oir overall as Oir, the Hayoy Soy Oir Atzmi, due to the fact that it is Oir Atzmi, Harei Hu Kodesh Umuvdo. Because it's Oir Atzmi, therefore it is Kodesh Umuvdo. Because it is always remains part of Atzmus. Yet still, Yesh Chalukim Be'efan HaHavdalah. There is differences in Be'efan HaHavdalah in the manner that the Havdalah, that this separation exists, at the level at which it is moved. But generally this is in 3 different madrigas. What is the principle of the differences with madrigas? Even though the oil be'etzem remains atzmi and it is muklam. Hine ha'oil da'atzilus. The oil of atzilus, harei hu bo b'mchine yislapchus mamash be'akilim da'atzilus. Oil atzilus is in the slapshus mamush. Slapshus mamush means that it becomes one with the keli, and it's inseparable. Where you see the keli in the oil, you see the oil in the keli. Vinyan hayis slapshus who actually we already went through. Vinyan hayis slapshus who. What is the principle of his slapshus? Sheho oil nasa kipi oifan hakeli. That the oil becomes kifi oifan hakeli, according to the manner of the keli. That whatever the contour, whatever the color and the form of the keli is, that's what becomes the oil. Ukenoida, as is known, shehoil be'etzem hu poshut, that the oil in essence, be'etzem in itself is poshut.
What mean the oil nasik kafir akala? Does it mean the oil in itself becomes kafir akala, or does it mean the effect on the outside is kafir?
Well, that's what we're going to learn. The principle is that the oil nasik kafir akala. That's what he slapshus. This is what we discussed just a moment ago, and we'll discuss it again. We already learned this. I don't know how come. I don't remember how we went back to the previous section. So Kneda show be'etzem hu poshut. Be'etzem the oil is poshut. Shabab b'kelim. And when the oil comes into kelim, harei hu b'bchinas oil ha'chochma v'yoil ha'chesed. Then the oil itself is in that category that you can truly identify it as Oir HaChochma and Oir HaChesed. We already discussed this today. And then in parentheses is the other opinion, and even according to what is explained elsewhere, Shagam be'oiros yesh spheres. That in oiros also there are spheres. In other words, the oiros, even the oil as it is unto itself, without the keli, there is also the element of the sphere, also the tziyur of Chochmah and Chesed. Still, harehu bibchinas pshitus legabe hakeli. Even according to that opinion, the oil is in a pshitus manner relative to the way it is in the keli. So, regardless of what what the shita is, what shita you follow, so to speak, whether the oil is mitziyorim or is pshutim, relative to the keli we're talking about in the oil is poshut. So even though the oil is poshut, and yet it becomes, by his slapshus in the keli, it becomes oil hachochmo and oil hachesed. So a little bit we discussed it today, and we'll now go into this. I said this is how far we went last time. I don't know what happened. We had questions again back. I know. Which means, in other words, keli poyel behoir, that the keli affects in the oil the yois kifiyofen hakeli, that the oil should be kifiyofen hakeli, like the keli is. Upoyel peulas hakeli, and thus the oil affects the same effect as the keli is. The keli and the oil join forces, so to speak, and both are focused on this one. Both are focused on Chochmah, and both are focused on Chesed. This is the effect of the keli upon the oil. Ukmoy kain, and likewise.
Rabbi Paltiel?
Yeah.
And whereas without the keli, the oil is not focused. Is that the idea?
The oil is
not
focused
on anything.
On anything, right?
It's like what you said, like the stone before you brought out the sculpture.
Oh?
It's like the stone before you brought out the sculpture in it.
The
Like
stone.
the canvas before you.
That's the oil itself. The oil.
I'm sorry, I keep relating to that Gashmis, the commercial of it.
Okay, it's fine. It's fine.
Right now.
It's fine. So that which it is the keli that brings it out from the oil. We are getting into it right now in great detail. Okay, so the oil becomes like the keli, the oifen hakeli. Kifi oifen hakeli, upoya piulas hakeli. So let's go through these couple of lines, and then we can go back. Just let's go through and see what the full message here.
Starting from Vainu.
Vainu she'akeli poel beho'oir. Li is kifi oifen hakeli. That the oil should be like the oifen hakeli, upoel piulas hakeli, and it should actually affect and accomplish the pula of the keli. It should join the keli in its activity. K'moy kain, and likewise ha'oir poyel behakeli. This is the effect of the keli upon the oil, and then also the oil is poyel in the keli. Sha'akeli mizdachacha, but the keli is purified on the day his slapshus ha'oir bo, as a result of the oil being mislabish in the keli. The Hainu, which means in simpler terms, Shehei Margishim Zeh es Zeh, that the Keli and the Oir sense one another. She'oir Margish es HaKeli Liyois Komeyo. The Oir senses the Keli, so that the Oir becomes like the Keli. The HaKeli Mageshes es Ha'oir, and the Keli senses the Oir Lihizdachech Lefi Eifen Ha'oir, to become purified Lefi Eifen Ha'oir, according to the Eifen, to the union of the Oir. Okay. What we're saying, and the fact that the keli is put on the oil, there should be kfiefen ha-keli, that is more or less a concrete element. There are diukim, there are nuances in the wording, in the presentation. So we'll try to point out some of them. That pointing out the nuances itself will give us a certain a finer sense of what is being said. First, we say that the keli is the keli is poil in the oil. The yois kifi oifen ha-keli should be kifi oifen, according to the manner of the keli. It would appear to be more suitable in terms of if you want to describe an effect. We say you want to be like the keli. Kifi oifen ha-keli. What does kifi oifen ha-keli mean? So we'll have, discuss this and then perhaps we can go back into our tangible physical examples and see or find these elements in there. Otherwise, we'll lose the whole fine phenomena of what's going on over here. Oir, as we pointed out, oir is a non-entity. Oir is the presence of the Etzem. That's what oir is. Oir is reality. Keli is Metzias. In other words,
sorry, is there a good word for Metzias in English?
Presence.
Presence.
Reality is Mahos.
What is the meaning when it says oir is reality? Meaning is like this. Keli, for example, chesed. So we say it says, see this was a chesed. The midas of chesed exists only if there is somebody to do chesed. Nobody to do chesed, so the midah vanishes. In other words, it's a relative and a circumstantial presence. It exists when there is an actual existence for it. There's something to do with it. There's nothing to do with this, there's nothing there, there's no presence. That's what midas are. But this is the midas in the keli level. At the essential level, which is the oil level, so the oil is talking about is the truth. In truth, as we said way back when we said we're talking about Atzmus, one point that we made about Atzmus, Yesh boy hakoy. There is everything in it. Which means there is everything in it. Chesed, we say, exists only when there is somebody, but there's an only to do chesed with. Mit Yesh by Hakol. Obviously, there are different concepts in presence. At the Keli level, a presence is a presence. When it has a piyul. Oir is Oir Atzm. Oir is representing Atzm. Oir is, whatever there is in Oir is because, not because it has a functionality, but because of the truth of that in. This is Oir. Talking about truth is poshut. And you can define truth. There is no definition to truth. And oil represents truth. That's what oil is. Representing, saying the oil is being presented. On the left. Yeah, that's,
There's not much.
Yeah,
There's not much remaining, but yeah.
okay. Go ahead.
Just push down that middle ring. Now pour.
So oil, this is the difference between oil and keli. Keli, its inyan is presence, it sees, and oil, its inyan is the truth, representing the answer. So we say that the oil assumes the color of the keli. The oil cannot become a metzias. Once it's a metzias, it's no longer oil. Like we point out in our moshel of the sunlight. Those who see the sunlight as energy, they don't see light. That's not light.
What do you mean by assume exactly?
What?
What do you mean by assumes? Or assumes the cave?
Assumes the color of the keli. Like you said, the oil becomes like the keli. The keli achesed, the oil becomes oil achesed.
Becomes like. So it can assume the color but not become a presence.
I'll try my best to go through step by step.
Yeah.
So we're saying the oil becomes on the keli. It shouldn't become on the keli. It becomes on mitzias. It's not oil.
But taking on color is okay.
So the way to express this is it becomes kfi oifen hakeli. Doesn't become like the keli. Doesn't become a keli. Doesn't become a mitzias. It remains oil.
But
now the oil shines like the keli, according to the effect of the keli.
It's like reflecting the color.
It does not reflect the keli, it reflects the oil. It reflects the etzem. But it reflects the etzem in the keli oifen. When you write, does your hand write or do you write? But your hand is writing. No. You become the Keif and Hakei.
A writer.
You become a writer. But you're not a writer. You're a human being. This is the nuance in this expression, Kifi Oifen Hakeil. It remains Oir. This is a phenomenal union. It remains Oir. And it is Oir Atzmi. And it still represents, it's still Oir Atzmi, as we said, even between Slavish and Sinikeli, it's Oir Atzmi. It still represents Etzem, the truth. Primarily, its presence is the truth. It's there because the truth is there. But it presents the truth in this color. When the human being writes, and it's hard to explain an example, but once I saw a little blurb where an elephant was made a picture of an elephant. Are you ready to give up your humanity? Elephant made a picture of an elephant. You know,
with his trunk.
Huh?
With his trunk.
With his trunk.
He put a brush in his trunk.
That's right. And not a brush. It was a crayon. You know, it's just lines. It wasn't. There was no shading or anything like that. It's just lines. You know. So the elephant made a. I would still say that when Yitzhak makes a picture of an elephant, it's a completely different concept than when the elephant makes a picture of an elephant.
Could you say the same example, a similar thing, when you see, for example, these, people can sign a letter that they type on a computer, and then the signature is computerized also, as opposed to it's actually signed by a human being?
I have to think about how you correlate these two things. I mean, I have to be going around. What's the correlation there? I don't see. But maybe I don't.
There's no Ayin in that writing. It's not a human being.
Well, it's approximating his signature, right?
Or it's an image of his signature.
It's an image of his signature, a picture. I don't know. The point is, it's not a question of what it looks like. It's a question of what is put into it. What? Huh?
I just missed the word.
What is put into it?
Oh, what is put into it?
When a human being writes, he puts his whole human element into this. It comes out in this concise representation, but it's a human view of things. This is why when you take a picture, we take a snapshot, a camera picture. Then we give it to an artist and say, okay, why don't you give me a piece of art? What do you need art to be? It cannot be any more precise than correct than in the picture. And yet we say, hey, this is a totally different world. What's a different world? The picture is only, Yitzhak, you explain.
A photo is like an imprint. It's almost like you took somebody's face and you put it down into some clay, and it takes.
But it's correct. It's true, though. It's correct.
It's correct, but the artist sees. He's looking for something. He draws out of something what's there, and he also puts into it what he sees into it. It's not just a direct.
Right. I once read about Michelangelo. Everybody, I'm sure, heard about Michelangelo. So I read that he was a painter and so on, but finally he went into sculpture. This was his big thing. And sculpture, or you can look at a person's sculpture. He he went into, he had to go and go inside the body and see how everything works inside, where all the veins and all the nerves and everything goes. And this was something which was necessary for him to be able to present a sculpture.
What's a sculpture?
Sculpture.
He spent a lot of time in the morgue.
Oh,
He spent a lot of time in the morgue.
That's right. Over there, he bribed he bribed the holy man over there, and they gave him the key, and he went going for nights, and he would cut all the morgue. He would cut them up. Why do you need to be? You need to a sculptor. Look at the other side. No. He has to see how come it looks like this. This is the human perception. Now the truth is that the human perception is like that. He sees it that way, but it's not enough to represent it yet because he doesn't understand it. That's why he needed to go inside and to understand what it is. So my point is that oil and Cain are two different worlds. Even if it's a Chesed. Cain is a response to a circumstance. Oil is an initial truth. Like we said many times, and now it becomes clear. We said, in the world of Kalim, non-presence precedes presence. In the world of oil, presence precedes non-presence.
Presence precedes non-presence.
What non-presence?
But he has to represent it in a place where it's not, it's shown. But it comes from presence.
Non-presence.
Non-presence precedes presence.
Yes.
Or vice versa.
Here, in these last two sentences, you're not using the word presence in the sense of Metzius. Or you are.
Yes, I am.
So, Oyer, or truth, is the world where presence precedes non-presence. This is, in other words, Metzius Amiti.
That's right.
Okay.
A Metzius where presence precedes non-presence is a completely different presence. Completely different Metzius. Amitis Ametzius. So the order remains, this is all contained in this nuanced expression. Kifi oifen hakeli. Not like the keli. Kifi oifen hakeli, it remains oil. Doesn't get lost. Because that the oil doesn't get lost, it remains oil. Therefore, the keli, in order to house the soil, has to rise up a little bit. Has to also be mizdachik. Be fine. You also be mizdachik. Look what I'm doing. No. Look at the truth. The Kohen also begins to point to the truth. This is where the Inyan from Beetle comes in. This is where you can do a mitzvah without looking to be recognized. I'm doing such a wonderful thing. How do I How do I avoid being recognized? I want to be recognized. I want to be my plaque on the wall. After all, I've done such a big thing. Because the Keli becomes defined. The only way that the Keli can house this oil is if it actually relates to the oil.
Kifi oifen or oil. But the Keli is also kifi oifen.
It's Margish. It seems that the Keli does have some ability here. He uses the word Margish.
You know.
It seems like the Keli does have an ability, an inherent ability.
Yeah, of course. It has. It's Margish. But what is it's Margish in a Metzias level, and by being Margish the oil, it becomes refined.
It stays a little if you oifen away.
Oh, the fear from the way, yeah. The Esdach is the fear from the way.
Back to the drawing board.
Huh?
Back to the drawing board.
All right. Baruch Hashem. This is it for this morning. Yeah, we are.
Thank you very much.
Okay, Kol Tov. Have a good day and a Payach and Chanukah, everyone. Kol Tov.
Day war of Hanukkah was, day one of the war was peaceful. We had a peaceful session today.
Yeah, tomorrow we'll see. I'm in fighting. I just think it's like, you think you have it, you think you have it.
Is the also the Shamish brand you have behind you?
1, 2, 3. Brother, keep your head up. I know you're fed up, but the Jews got the move. Lech lecha, don't let up. Things get in the way to discern. Ooh, thank you, Tati, for letting me learn and turn. I know you know one day I'll return. Ooh, the favor's deserved, 'cause of your word, even kinder than mom and you I prefer over and above the world. Oh, I won't fade away, 'cause the very next day, back in strength and here to stay, reflecting like the moon. Oh, 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 na-ni-na, oh, 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 na.